was a BMT artist in the Brooklyn Manhattan Transit. He did all his pieces in Brooklyn, Astoria, Queens, or Manhattan. That's the only places he ever rode. So it was like Astoria, Sunset Park, the Bronx. That's pretty much it. So a lot of people didn't know who Don1 was, but when Don1 was around, he was like a meteor. He came in, started writing in 73. By 71, no, by 70, what am I talking about? 73 he started. By 74, 75, he already was like ahead of whoever was on the double R's. He predated Dondi and he influenced Dondi. There wasn't that many guys doing burners on the double R's. He did throw-ups, but he didn't really care about throw-ups. It's the cover of the book. He didn't care about throw-ups. He wanted to get up doing burners, and that's how he influenced me, because I was not a king. I didn't bomb. I did insides, outsides, throw-ups, burners, a couple of whole cars, but I didn't want to get up doing throw-ups. I wanted to get up doing nice pieces, and that's how I did it. And I was influenced by him. That's like his most notable train. It's called the Reaper car because it has the Grim Reaper in the middle. And it's the first time he ever did a Mafia piece. This is 1976 on a double R's, and he did this in Astoria on the layup. And this was like ahead of everybody else that was on that train line. That's a black book, but this is actually Al Diaz's book, Don1, who's also Samo. If you don't know. This is his black book, and Don's already doing like illustration work, the gun, putting the crown. This is pre-Mafia. So he did this in like 1975 because he started Mafia in 1976. Now, this is where he's right here. He's using like airbrush and stuff to do these like dots. So he was like an illustrator. He went to art and design, and what did he do? He was an illustrator and he was a photographer. Another black book piece. That's the 59th Street Bridge in Astoria. That's an ohm tag by LSD. And a legend well lived. That's like 1976. Another tag on the inside top with a uni on double R's. This is 1975. I think that's 1976. That's in, what was this? That's Dime 139 right there. So this was in Queens someplace. Same spot. That's the piece he was doing. That's 1973. That's when he started. And there's, I think Gear used to write that. Gear was one of Don's partners back in the day. Another, a different angle of the piece was 76. Another shot of it. Rappel, Inca. Rappel was doing nice pieces on double, but he was from Brooklyn, and so he's a contemporary. But Don took pictures of. What's weird about this book is that not only did Don take pictures of his own pieces, he took pictures of everybody else that was up. That's Inca on the insides during the day. Team, this is a one line. Butch Shoe and Case. That's a Don and a Gear right there with that crazy looking character. This one, I saw this. This lasted until like 1982, unbuffed and it wasn't crossed out or anything. As a matter of fact, I was in the M yards one time and I saw these kids lining up their cans. They were going to go over this piece, and I stopped them. I said, "What are you guys doing?" They're like, "Oh, it's old. We're going to go over it." I said, "Nah, don't go over this. Go do pieces someplace else." And they got like disgruntled. They walked away though, and they didn't paint over it. I was glad about that. But then, before I left, I took KR tag right here. Like right around here. I took a tag. I just wanted to be a part of that piece. And then I left. That's Gear. That's Broadway Station in Astoria, 1976. That's one of my favorite photos from the book, because I call it Hendrix on the layup, because he looks like Jimi Hendrix from the side, because of his hair. But he's got the Converse All Stars on, he's got the bell bottoms, and he's got a can of Rust-Oleum. That's the same day. Now I'm taking one of his wild tags. Another, like 75, I think that was. Smoking in the boys' room, that's the bathroom in our design high school. That's his, his daily rack. Not the ink, I don't think he racked up all the ink and the markers in one day, but all the spray paint, that's a one-day rack. That's him with the good. That's on design, the nice mini tag right there. I saw this was the first piece of his that I ever seen. I seen this when I was 10 years old, and I thought it was legal. I asked my brother, I was like, what is that? You know, are they allowed to paint like that? I thought it was the MTA that was doing it. He was like, nah, it's a bunch of punks with spray paint. And then I became one of those punks with spray paint. This one, another, this is TFA. I know Dez is TFA, and he was, you know, noted for TFA, but Don, Gear, and Dean had TFA. This is from 1975, so they had TFA before. It's just that there was only 3 people in the crew, and it didn't get up that much, that nobody knew about it. But this is the first TFA was Don, Gear, and Dean, who also was the president of BYB, the Bad Yard Boys. Another Don's, like, technical style. Little hot rod. And Scat is Jot 76. They backgrounded everything that was, there probably was throw ups and stuff. They just like spray painted over the whole thing. With a skinny cap. This was like supposedly his last piece, but it wasn't. He did another burner in 1977. This is 76. And you can see he wrote Mr. Don1, a legend well lived, 73 to 76. So it's not that, he didn't write for that long. You know, like basically 3 years, and then he did a piece in 77, was the last piece. There's a better angle of it. He kind of looked like this guy, because he had a big nose, and used to wear glasses, but you know, that's a cartoon of himself. Replacing the O with the character. Son 1 right there, it's early Son 1 on the right. This is his last piece. This was done in 77, and I want to bring something out. Is this whole thing right here, with the little pipe sticking out, the star, that's one letter. It's the letter D. Then he's got a shoelace around it. So over here. And he did a little character in the O, which is a heart. So he was kind of doing things that were not really done on BMTs, especially the double R's. You know, he had an IRT sensibility, and he used watercolors like that's hot raspberry. It was a highly sought after crayon color back then. And I think one of his main influences was Billy 167, because he never really mentioned anybody. He mentioned Chain 3, Lee, Billy 167. Oh, he really didn't know Knock. He met Knock once. And good thing that Knock took it upon himself to put other writers in Mafia, because it brought Mafia into the 80s, like Zephyr, Dondi, Fuzz 1, Fed 2. There was no toys in Mafia. It was all top writers. And this crew is one of the best abbreviations that I remember. There's a Master's Administration for Incredible Artists. And that's a pretty dope, you know, abbreviation. And there was another one, Fanny, a fantastic artist now in action. I just remember it. It was a record company.
Go back. Go back. Wrong way. Go back.
Well, that's part of the Mafia whole cut that he did. And, you know, he was a really nice guy. He had a tragic life. In 1978, he was with a couple of girls, and they were partying, and they brought out a mirror. Well, and he thought there was cocaine on it, so being a little bit of a nut job that he was, and the fact that was going on back then, he did it, but he did all of it. And basically it was angel dust. and he overdosed on angel dust, and he never came out of the trip that the angel dust put him on, which sucks, because he basically became, a pharmaceutical, victim of the pharmaceutical industry, and he never got his mind back, so he became a recluse. A lot of people thought he died, but he quit writing because he had to. He knew all about it. That's all he would talk to me about. And I got to meet him and hang out with him it took 10 years from the time I wrote this book to the time it came out. From the time I met him to the time I came out, it was about 10 years. He was a really nice guy. He was funny. He was still a creative guy. He was always drawing, still doing pieces, but he shook. His right hand shook, so he would have to use rulers. And he'd still do crazy pieces that had a lot of style to it. And he knew all about graffiti. He stopped paying attention to graffiti because it just wasn't in he wasn't doing it anymore. He did a couple of magazine covers. He did some porno magazines and stuff like that. But after the graffiti ended and his hallucinations wouldn't go away, he started taking a really bad medicine, and it was bad for him. Then later on in his life, before he passed away, he had a fall in his house, and he wound up getting paralyzed from his neck down. So he had a pretty messed up going, but he remained a creative spark, and he definitely influenced me. There wasn't a lot of people in at the time in Astoria that wrote graffiti. This is before like KB and Super Squad and Smoke, TKC, and those guys, because those guys were up on the BMTs. But they were up with insides and throw-ups, but Don really was up with only burners. For back then, it doesn't look like much, right? You look at it and you say, it's not that good, but really for back then, that was really stopping on it. And the fact that he did the whole train was another thing, and the fact that he was a great photographer. This book has over like 120 photos in it. It was all taken with a 35 millimeter camera by him, so he was taking great, like that shot of, that's a great shot. So is that. Where's the one of gear? I didn't have any of this photoshopped or anything. I left the colors look the way he took them, the clover green and cascade green, with a emerald green outline. It was just, I was amazed by that. I was only 10 years old when I saw this. Cool. The picture of, that's a great shot. The picture of of Gear, the composition of that photo, he got the angle already, it's like zooms you into the shot. And he was just great, and it inspired me. So I kind of, when I first met him, one of the first things we spoke about, I was going to talk to him about a book. And but I thought he would think that I was trying to get over on him or something, so I didn't bring it up. I only went forward with it because he brought it up to me. He was like, what we should do? I said, why? We should write a book. I said, okay. So I went along with it. I scanned all his photos that he had, and I wrote to Shipper. I sent them, I think, 7 pictures. They got back to me in like 5 minutes. They were like, we want to see everything. I said, no, I don't want to send you everything by email. I'd rather come and meet you in person, because I figured to myself, if I met them in person, then it's me selling the book to them, and I could talk better, and face to face. And they went for it. I met the owner of the company. I sent them all the photos. They high-res scanned everything. There's more pictures than are in this book, because the book would have been twice as thick. So I sent them, the amount that they asked me to. So I'm just glad that I was able to tell this guy's story, because they say that a star that burns twice as bright only lasts half as long. And that's the case with Joe. His name is Joe Palatella. He's a rock and roller from Astoria, Queens, and there was like not many people doing. There was this guy Mick 3 that would write in Astoria. KB was just beginning. Smoke was just beginning. Solo 1 was beginning. But Don really eclipsed all of them. When he came around, it was like, wow. When I first seen his tags, Queensbridge, I thought he was Dean's friend from the Bronx, because all the best writers were from the Bronx. So I was like, he's got to be like Dean's friend from out of the neighborhood. But it turns out he lived like a mile and a half from me. But the fact that he was a recluse, I never met him. I didn't know who he was until after the fact. I would see his stuff, but I didn't know who he was. I didn't know, anything about him until I finally met him. He kept a note that I gave his brother from 1986. He still had the note. He showed it to me, and I was like, "What? I wrote this to you when I was a teenager." He was like, "Yeah, I know." So, I'm just glad that I was able to meet this guy and put together his life. And I'm a bit of an actor, and I made a movie where I play him. And that's around someplace too. It's in film festivals around the world. And we showed it a couple of times in New York, trying to get more screenings of it. But I played him, and it was hard, man, because of what he went through, and I had to put together like a whole story based on his life without making it only about his downfall. But I had to show it, I had to show what actually happened to the guy, the human element. He was a nice guy, and he had a lot of style. And I want to thank Ed, I want to thank the museum in the city of New York, I want to thank Sean, I want to thank everybody here for showing up and caring enough about the culture where you would come and spend time to hear people like me talking about these guys, because, you got Led Zeppelin, you get Jimi Hendrix, whoever else, but Don was one of those guys to me, he was a superstar, and I'm glad that I was able to meet him and write about him, because sadly, he passed away in 2016, and he would always ask me, "Okay, where's the money from the book?" I'm like, "Joe, man, I'm telling you, man, there's no money being made. I'm spending money." But he's still, he was still like a kid about it. He really cared, and he would talk for hours and hours. He would tell me before I left, "Okay, next time let's hang out for like 6 or 7 hours." I'm like, "Okay, we'll hang out for 6 or 7 hours." But, thanks again for everybody for showing up, and Ed, thanks for including me.